Buddy of mine has been mowing that property since he was old enough to mow grass. He was 59 the other day, and his daddy did it before him. And it's just unimproved property, and he just to do something with it. And it would benefit him and the city if he could get it, because that'll give you a few more dollars a year tax base, and then he can go ahead and make improvements on his property that adds to that as well. That's all. I'd like to see y'all approve it, that's all.
All right. Thank you, Fred. Anyone else want to speak for or against? I'm going to close that public hearing. We've got another public hearing to consider acceptance and appropriation of proposed CARES Act fund for the city estimated as follows. CARES Act funding received total of $483,169, and then CARES Act funding received for elections total $51,213. Public hearing is open. Does anyone like to speak for or against these proposals? All right, we'll close that public hearing. The next thing in the called meeting is we have a first reading on ordinance 20-09 regarding vacating the portion of unopened right-of-way designated as East Willow Street, what we just had the public hearing about.
I move for approval.
Second.
Any comments or discussion? Ms. Wood, could we have a roll call, please?
Mr. Ensminger?
Four.
Mr. Hunter?
Four.
Mr. Tucker?
Four.
Vice Mayor Crozier?
4.
Mayor Sabal?
4. Next item of business is the appropriation resolution 20-30 regarding CARES funding as follows. CARES Act funding received total $483,169.
Move for approval.
Second.
3 of them are Ms. Wood. Any comments, discussion, council? Ms. Wood, could we have a roll call, please?
Mr. Ensminger?
Four.
Mr. Hunter?
Four.
Mr. Tucker?
Four.
Vice Mayor Crozier?
4.
Mayor Sabal?
4. Next item is appropriation resolution 20-31 regarding CARES Act funding received for elections totaling $51,213.
Move for approval.
Second.
Any questions or discussion? Ms. Wood, could we have a roll call?
Mr. Ensminger?
Four.
Mr. Hunter?
Four.
Mr. Tucker?
Four.
Vice Mayor Crozier?
4.
Mayor Sabal?
4. Next item in the called meeting is to accept the retirement of Ms. Wood as our city clerk.
Mr. Mayor,
Yes,
it's
sir.
with deep regret that I make a motion that we accept the retirement of Gail Wood effective September 30th.
With deep regret, I'll second it.
I got through it, Gail. I told you it was gonna be hard.
For all you do.
Thank you, gentlemen. I appreciate all of you.
Let's do a roll call on that.
Mr. Ensminger?
4.
Mr. Hunter?
Will it do me any good to vote against?
If you get 2 more people vote with you.
but no. Mr. Tucker?
Four.
Vice Mayor Crozier?
4 with regret.
Yes.
Mayor Sabal?
And with regret, I'll vote 4. All right, now, the next item on the agenda is the appointment of a new city clerk.
And with that, Mr. Mayor, I'm happy to make a motion that we appoint Miss Rebecca Scott as the new city clerk effective September 1st, 2020.
Second.
Questions, discussion?
We had, just to fill y'all in, we had 3 really good candidates that Alan and I interviewed, and it was a hard choice, and I can only speak for me, but Alan can chime in. We're excited with Becky coming in. Now, it's hard me getting used to calling you Becky, because she was my teacher many, many, many years, many decades ago. Oh, I done got the finger point. I'm used to that. It won't be the last time.
How do
No.
you think I feel talking about Mr. Tucker?
Oh,
I can't break down and call him by his first name. How do you think I'm gonna do it with Miss Scott?
I think we've taught a lot of kids, haven't we, Becky?
Did you make,
I made the motion.
how did you make the motion?
I made the motion that we approve the appointment of Rebecca Scott effective September 1st.
And Alan second.
I
And
second.
Alan second, yeah.
Let's do a roll call on that, Ms. Wood.
Mr. Ensminger,
Or,
Mr. Hunter,
Four.
Mr. Tucker,
4.
Vice Mayor Crozier.
4.
Mayor Sabal.
4. Congratulations. Thank you so much.
Thank you for applying for the job.
Council, is there anything else we need to do before we close the called meeting?
Negative.
Not that I can think of.
I don't have anything.
All right, well, let's close the called meeting and go into the next meeting.
Just a moment, Mr. Mayor,
You can say something if you'd like.
to you. And I look forward to working with you, Ms. Scott.
Just want to let y'all know this is not bulletproof glass here. We're not finished. We're going to put some wings on these things, man, and we'll be up here in little cocoons, closed in.
Ejector seats and all that, yeah.
Let me see where we're at. We have a work session tonight, and we have several items on the agenda. I want to go ahead and call the work session to order. Ms. Wood, show everyone in attendance, please. On the agenda, it has citizens' comments at the end, but a while back, we changed it to the beginning. Is there anyone that would like to make any comments tonight? Would you state your name and your address, please, sir?
Your age?
My name is Joshua Haynes. I live in Parish Court on Phillip Street, 333, and I'm an old man, so. I was gonna cover these comments at the school board meeting that's coming up for the school merger, where public gets a chance to comment. And I don't know if y'all are familiar, but it has to make it past the school boards before it comes before the governing boards. If even one board fails to approve it, it dies, okay? So I was gonna wait, but there was something posted online today that got me pretty riled up, and so I feel the need to respond to that. Now, I would like to speak on behalf of area school consolidation. As someone who has been involved in Covington city government for several years, and as someone who has closely followed and to a certain extent been involved in the school consolidation efforts, I am fully aware of the ramifications for the city of Covington if consolidation fails. The Covington city school system is currently the city's Covington highest yearly bill. In fact, the bill in number 2 slot is less than half what the city spends on schools, and funding for schools is continually going up. As school properties gain age, requirements for student success expands, and educators continue to demand higher pay, the amount of funding needed will continue to rise. By the way, about educator pay raises, Covington City school teachers have received 2 or 3 pay raises in the time since the last pay raise occurred for anyone else drawing a paycheck from the city. And while teachers are important and fill an important role, so do police officers, sanitation workers, wastewater treatment plant, landfill, and parks and rec employees, city department heads, and city hall staff and city council. Failure to consolidate schools at this time will lead to, in the very near future, an unsustainable school system for our city. Now, I've heard a lot of argument from the general public in opposition to the merger, but I am privy to information that is not secret, but that is rarely sought out by the general public. I am privy to this information because I have taken an interest in our city, and I have been present at any meeting that I can to learn all that I can. I've had multiple conversations with multiple forms of leadership in this community at many different levels. I've been in positions of leadership in this community myself and plan on continuing to do so. And just to say it, all the false, uninformed, belittling, and sometimes ignorant comments that I've seen and heard concerning school consolidation are coming from members of the community that I have never seen in a meeting of any kind, that I have never had a conversation with about any local issue. It is my opinion that knowing all the facts before offering your comments or opinions on any given subject is important, and that you should take the time to actually attend meetings, perform the research, and learn about the issues before making said comments or asking said questions. The simple fact remains that from a city finance perspective, continuing to fund our school system at its current level with the continual decline in both population and city revenues and a stagnant economy is virtually impossible. If the Covington City School System continues to be a standalone system, it will fail, unless one of two things happens, or perhaps even both. Those two things being a cut in offered services and a significant raise in taxes, period. You can argue with me all day long about which school to use as the high school, what the mascot should be, or even why you were opposed to school consolidation altogether. But if you understood what I understand, you would know better. Let me offer you this. Currently, the city's number 2 source of revenue comes from the machine and tool tax, collected off of the city's taxable portion of the mill, second only to the real estate tax. However, there has been a constant push at the state capitol for a number of years to repeal Virginia's machine and tool tax. That repeal is seen as a great recruiting tool in garnering potential industry for more prosperous regions of our state, like, say, Northern Virginia, which, unlike Covington, whom this tax repeal would utterly destroy, would come with little to no negative repercussions for said communities. Now, think about this. If the Covington City School System is the city's number 1 bill, and the tax generated from the machine and tool tax garnered from the mill is its number 2 source of income, what happens if that source of income is eliminated? It's simple numbers. I would be inclined to think that the difference to maintain even our current level of service would have to be made up by a very steep incline in either the real estate tax or some other tax paid by citizens. That difference is currently being paid by the mill. This issue for the city, to me, really boils down to only one principle. The same principle each of us deal with in our individual homes, month after month, year after year. What's going out versus what's coming in. If your wife loses her job, how do you pay the mortgage? If you take an income loss or loss of savings due to unexpected emergencies, what expenses do you eliminate? If bills are going up and income is remaining the same, what do you do? How do you adjust? Citizens are allowing emotions and mob rule to lead over common sense and truth. And with local platforms like the Allegheny Journal, they are given an opportunity to make any ridiculous comment, any unfounded claim, or any ludicrous, hurtful, or derogatory statement they wish. They are uninformed, they go unchecked, unverified, and unsubstantiated. Much of the commentary is outright untrue. And unfortunately, it has a tendency to falsely sway public opinion. In fact, I very recently saw Mr. Steve Dresser was given an interview platform with which to express his objections to the school merger. But where are the interviews of those in favor of it? And while Mr. Dresser seems like a decent guy, I've never seen him at a council meeting. I've never seen him at a council work session. I've never seen him at a city budget hearing. I've never seen him at a budget work session. He really has no idea from a city standpoint the reality of this situation. He kept insisting consolidation means condensing. That is not what it means at all. Webster's dictionary defines consolidation as the process of making something stronger and more solid, the action or process of combining a number of things into a single, more effective and coherent whole. Think about it, when corporate America merges two companies like Disney and Pixar, or AOL and Time Warner, those companies do not get smaller, they get larger and better. Then when asked by the interviewer how he thought that a small school like Covington could continue to be supported at the current level with financial conditions in the city without a significant tax hike, he replied, the answer to that question is until its time comes, don't worry about it. What? Don't worry about it? This man is tasked with teaching our children, okay? Openly saying that we should not prepare for an inevitable disaster until it's actually too late. I'm appalled. Please do not buy in. Please do not fall in line. Keep in mind that leaders are elected and appointed to make decisions, to give attention and effort to issues that the rest of us rely on but have time for, or are often not passionate. You are tasked with deciding what is best for the people, tasked with making decisions that are often controversial, decisions that will always have support on both sides. And often you have to make the right decisions based on what is best for your citizenry and community, even if the majority of them are opposed due to lack of information or a false sense of understanding. Most things in life worth doing aren't done easily, and nearly all progress in human history has been met with opposition. In addition, whatever you all decide will be dropped in the laps of my generation. So please do not leave us with an avoidable mess. If it gets to your nation, please vote to pass it. Thank you.
Thank you, Josh. Any other public comment?
I've got one real quick. Mine's nowhere near as good as that gentleman is, but my name's Jeremy Workman. I live on Hugh Street behind Coochie's, and my thought's just the opposite of that gentleman's. I don't have all the numbers that he has. I don't go to the city council meetings. This is the first meeting I've come to. But I can tell you from experience, my son, by no fault of his own, has been in 3 school districts over the last 13 years of his life. And I have never seen him do as well as he has in any other school district other than what he has in the city of Covington. My stepdaughter goes to the county. I am not, and I agree with this gentleman, there's no reason for these people to call the names and the remarks that have been, I thought they were childish at best, to talk about an educator or a principal or a guidance counselor like that. But I feel that the city's education system is by far one of the best I've ever had to deal with. And I hope that, and I don't know the numbers like that gentleman, he seems spot on. He even makes me wonder with some of the numbers. Kind of has me second guessing, but I'm going off of what my son does, who I saw struggle in school systems. And when he comes to this city, he went from, we thought he was doing good, to get a D+, is now B+ on average. Now, some people are saying, well, he's not straight A's. I love my son. He'll never be straight A's because his father wasn't straight A's. But I have seen a whole new child in my son coming to the city. So please, when you get the option, if it makes it to you all, keep the city like it is. Keep the educators that we have, the quality educators that we have. I don't want my kids to have to suffer through the other school systems that my son has. I don't want to see that again if I don't have to. If it happens, I might be wrong. They consolidate and it might be the greatest school system ever. But speaking from experience, the city of Covington has one of the best school systems that I've ever saw. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Jeremy.
Well, we'll move on down the agenda then. We've got Ms. Barber here from the Executive Director of CSB, and she's going to give us a report on the annual performance contract. Good evening.
Good evening. Mayor Sabol, Ms. Onitas, and other members of the City Council. Can you hear me?
Yes, ma'am.
Yes, ma'am.
I'm here on behalf of the CSB, but first and foremost, I want to thank Ms. Wood also personally for her service. I've been doing this job now for 11 years and 8 months, and it's been a pleasure to work with you. So I wish you luck in your retirement.
Thank you very much.
Yes. I'm here tonight to just present the performance contract. The State Department of Behavioral has requested that we do an extension to our performance contract that you approved last August. So they're asking us to go to our local governments and have the extension through December 31st of 2020 due to COVID-19. And then we'll get further guidance after the first of the year on how we proceed with the performance contract. So merely tonight, I just need your approval to extend it, and I may have.
So we just give a consensus tonight?
Yeah.
No,
I
we've
need
got
a-
to put it on the agenda for next week.
Yeah.
Okay.
And just to clarify, the performance contract covers,
The performance contract is the guidance on how the CSBs operate in the service delivery system. I'll answer any questions if you have any.
And so we usually do this in May.
You usually do it in August of every
August.
year. There's a new performance contract, and due to COVID-19, they just decided to extend the existing contract that we currently had
Okay, and at least till the end of December?
through December until we get further guidance from the state.
Okay.
There's not any questions on this. I just have an unrelated question since you're here.
Okay.
And it's a good opportunity. Just mentioning what services or programs are open and available right now
Yeah,
through
sure,
the CSB?
sure. So all of our locations are open, effective after the 4th of July weekend. We have still some employees working remotely just to keep down on having so many people in the buildings. But we do have staff working at least 2 to 3 days on site, and the others are working remotely from home. The clinic is fully open. We're providing all the services that individuals need here in the community. And we have not extended day support to the outside community as of yet, but we are providing it to our group home residents, just because we know that they're in the group home for right now. And we plan to, sometime in October, maybe permissible, open it up to the community, the day support program, but all the other programs are in operation. And we're hoping to get TDT up and going, therapeutic day treatment, once the schools start.
And then drug court.
We had our first drug court meeting today, and we had our first referral for the drug court today. And I'm excited and happy that that went very well. Judge Stein, in the meeting that we had today, he clarified the process. Defense attorneys are able to make referrals for people that want to participate in the program, and we're hoping to grow that program. But we do have one referral as of now, and we're happy and excited that we met today. Court days are going to be on Tuesdays. We're going to have treatment meetings starting at 12:30, and we'll start to go into court at 1.
Dumb question, but those are the ones I ask the best. Who serves as a judge for drug court?
The
And where are
Honorable-
you having it? Are you having it at the courthouse or?
The Honorable Judge Ed Stein is the one that's serving as the judge.
Okay,
And we'll be having all the meetings in a conference room there at the courthouse.
okay,
And then at normal court is when we'll have drug court.
okay.
So this is kind of like almost a sentencing to drug court.
Yes, yes, as like a plea deal.
Okay.
I'm glad to see they getting started.
I am too.
Very much.
Thank you very
I am
much.
too.
Thank you, Ingrid.
Sure.
Thank you, and thank you for everything that CSB does.
Oh, you're welcome. So no questions tonight. I'm planning to head down to Allegheny County.
Good luck.
Drive safe.
Okay,
Thank
thank
you,
you.
Ingrid.
Thanks.
So the next item on the agenda is presentation on the Joint School Service Committee. I'm going to move that down a little bit, if that's okay with council,
Okay.
and we'll get back to that in just a few minutes. Want to go ahead and get these items on the agenda to start with. We have to consider the approval of the CSB annual performance contract, which is just an extension of the one that they have.
Agenda.
Agenda.
Everybody's all right with that? Brandon Parker was on the Planning Commission, and he has moved to North Carolina. So he has resigned, and we will need to consider an appointment to that position. Ms. Wood, we've not advertised yet in the paper, have we?
No, sir, we haven't been advertising those appointments. Normally, Mr. Parker, would have been an incumbent. His term actually does end the 30th of September. So I had contacted him to see if he wished to serve, and that's when we found out that he was moving.
Really?
Yes.
Well, ain't that something?
So that's why that stands as it is right now.
Agenda.
Well, just a second.
Okay. Sorry about that.
If it's going to end the 30th, wouldn't we be better off just to wait until October to make the appointment? Or would they take over in October?
I think because of the appointment ending on the 30th, the new term would take effect October 1st, correct?
So we're appointing for the next term.
For October
Exactly.
1st,
But
yeah.
there, obviously, there are times that you need to extend your ability to appoint someone if you need to do that. According to Mr. Tyree, there is nothing critical on the the plan right at this point in time. So you have a little bit of time if you need it.
I
Okay.
do believe that there are several prospective businesses that are looking for zoning changes.
Uh-huh.
So that there might be a need for the zoning commission to meet in October. I know that there's been several folks that have called and inquired about zoning changes.
Cool.
Just FYI.
So if we get it in the paper Thursday,
Right, the
Second.
term would end on the 30th, the new term would begin October the 1st, and that would be for the next four-year term.
how much time do we have to have before we can vote on someone?
I'm sorry.
How much time do we have to have before we can vote on someone? How much advertising?
In the past, Mr. Tucker, there have been times when it was difficult to find someone, or due to circumstances beyond council's control, the appointments had to be delayed for a while, which is acceptable and understandable. I understand the Planning Commission Board is a 7-member board. You also have another opening that will need to be filled next month. So you will actually have two that
Advertised
need to
for
be
two.
filled at this time. So that would give you your 5-member board, which would be their quorum if they needed it.
Okay.
I'd say go ahead and do this seat next week and then
Do the other one in
do the other
October?
one in October,
Okay.
yeah, for Ms. O'Connor.
Y'all okay with that?
Yes.
We'll put it on the agenda then. We have another appointment to the Board of Zoning Appeals, and did you talk to,
I'm trying to get in touch with him, yes, sir.
if you'll look in your packet, that was
Robert Floyd?
Robert Floyd, term ends the 30th, and she's trying to get in touch with him to see if he would want to be reappointed.
Agenda.
I agree.
I apologize, I inverted the items we were discussing. My apologies, because I was talking about zoning, not planning.
Oh, okay.
It's
I got you.
Okay.
So Crystal, even though we do not have a typical manager's report in this meeting, could you kind of update us on the Carpenter Drive project, the
Absolutely,
timeframes there? And there was
absolutely,
something else. Oh, what about the recycling and,
recite,
You want to get through the other two items for the
What's that?
agenda? And You got Willow Street,
we're all over the place today. It's one of those days.
number 4.
There's
on your
number
agenda.
4, and then we can do an update, and then we can go back to the presentation maybe, or new business, and then there's an item to add to the agenda as well, for the resolution for Rayon Bridge.
You have a number 4 on your,
yes, I do.
okay.
All right, let's do that first. Y'all just stay with us, man. I ain't been feeling well lately.
You're doing fine.
It's all right.
So we need to consider the second reading of ordinance 2009 regarding the vacation of portions of unopened street designated as East Willow Street.
Agenda.
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 Okay.
And
Now,
we
what do
need-
you have to add?
We
the
need to
agenda?
add to the agenda with council's approval, a resolution of support for the reinstitution of funding for the Rayon Bridge project. Y'all should have gotten an email that was with a letter that was sent from VACO to, huh?
To VACO.
To VACO, yeah, to VACO, about, y'all are familiar with funds for Rayon got pulled. This would be a letter of, a resolution of support from council supporting the reinstitution of that money.
So. You want to put it on?
So we want to put that on the agenda for next week.
Yes, sir.
A resolution of support. With the COVID-19 issues the state's having, they've pulled a lot of different projects and cut some funding in different places. And in the transportation budget, the Rayon Bridge was not completely funded, but it was in for the request, and that's one of the things that the governor pulled out. VACO is the Virginia Association of Counties, and James Griffin from the Allegheny County Board of Supervisors sits on their board, and he has asked VACO to help us to try to reinstitute that funding. And what we're asking for here is just a resolution in support of VACO's efforts to try to get that money back for the Rayon Bridge. So we will put that on the agenda for next week.
All right, would you like an update on, the slope stabilization efforts?
Yes, ma'am.
Pulled up the, project update that I got. I will say I apologize that I didn't send that to you all on Friday with, your regular updates. I took Friday off, so, oops. But just quick update, the total man-hours spent on the project as of Friday was 977 man-hours. Again, another good week with no incidents. The current phase that they're in, they're still working on the back wall on Ashland. The back wall now is fully 100% drilled. They've done 100% of the prep for the shotcrete. They're 100% complete with the micropile and the capping. So that's good. They're making incredible progress. With South Carpenter, they've started the back wall drilling 100%, and with the shotcrete, they are 100%. So the current project complete for just that site, they're 34% complete. So that's pretty good progress, because the same time last week, they were at, hold on, scroll down. Yep. Scroll too much. Last week, on the 21st, they were only at 19% complete. So they made a big leap. They're really working hard out there. The current projected completion date now is actually bumped up to October 20th. Previously, it was based out and projected to be October 28th. So they're steadily shaving off time, and we've already started to realize some additional cost savings. They've been able to shorten the length of even just the slope stabilization, the length of the shotcrete wall and other things. So it's one of those things that you don't know what you don't know, and that's good. That, since we're hoping that we can get a reimbursement from VDEM. I will say that, as you all know, we encountered immense utility coordination difficulties with this phase of the project with doing this area. We actually lost 2 utility coordination efforts with the gas companies and overhead utilities. And so far, we've only lost 2 crew hours to weather, which is not bad. They can pretty much work as long as there's not lightning or like massive downflow of rain. One thing I will say, I've asked them, given the frequent rains that we've been having, and we've been starting to have some good downpours, they do make sure each day when they leave the site that they secure it and that it is stabilized, so nothing's kind of left just loosely sort of in play. Everything is at least secured, and they leave things where, if they're working on a row of securing that segment of soil, that segment is finished before they leave for the day. So nothing's just left to potentially shift or fall. And as I mentioned previously with Mallow, with the unintended landslide, we're continuing in-house to monitor that at least once to twice a week, with driving past, getting out of the vehicle, and making sure it doesn't start to further slip. In the event that we may have to shift mobilization over to Mallow sooner, just given the rains that we've unfortunately seemed to have had lately. Yesterday was quite significant as well. The other thing I'd like to update you on, since you asked, just recently, citizen requests, just some trending citizen requests. One of the things that we've had recently, of course, no brainer, we've gotten a lot of calls just on the traffic flow in the Ashland Carpenter area. Those have kind of started to dip off. We've had a strong uptick in property maintenance calls, namely around grass. And the other thing that we've had calls on, and I wanted to bring it to you all's attention, is the statue that is down at the county courthouse. We've gotten significant calls in my office about that over the last 2 to 3 weeks, as well as some of the signage that is on our gateway entrances, with some residents having concerns on both of those pieces. So that's all I have at an impromptu moment. Is there anything else that you guys want to ask me? Oh, I do know that there was some confusion with the Rayon Bridge inspection. That's pretty much just an automatic scheduled effort. So it was kind of that they were just planning to come, and we just put the cursory notice out. Upon review, we realized the adverse impacts that doing a bridge inspection at the same time that it was scheduled for September 9th, which was the first day of school, as well as we're also still working on Carpenter. So it wouldn't be feasible to close the bridge or even just close one lane and then have one lane temporary road on Carpenter. So we have worked to postpone it. We're working to reschedule a date for the Rayon Bridge inspection. We've also communicated that need to VDOT. We were also just concerned that if we shifted all the traffic over to Carpenter, the safety for motorists as well as those working at the work site, because of the high volume of traffic that would be going through on a temporary road. So we have postponed the bridge inspection at this time.
So the timeline on the Mallow Road project, will the Carpenter Drive project be completely finished when they move to Mallow Road?
That is the intent. However, if the conditions deteriorate such that it's necessary to prevent further damage on Mallow, we may have to switch mobilization and just go ahead and start working on Mallow, because it is kind of precarious right there with the way that landslide fell out from underneath the shelf of the road. So we're monitoring it. They're also prepared and aware that they may have to do that. It's just to then, in the long run, save costs. You don't want the road to fully wash away. So we're actively monitoring that.
Is that road will be completely shut down for that project?
It'll have a segment closed, but luckily where the segment is where they'll do the landslide work and the slope stabilization, there's no home directly across from it. So it will maybe impact local traffic the most, because it's really not an ideal route for commercial traffic. I mean, you do see some commercial vehicles that go through there that, for whatever reason, just aren't familiar with the area, but it is not a heavily traveled area. It's mostly local traffic. So it will be closed, but it will be, there's no homes across the street or anything like that, so there's no right-of-way acquisition that we'll be working on or anything like that.
Okay.
I'll ask this, and I might regret asking this, but here we go. What was your office's response when they called about the statue, which we have no control over? That's county, thank God.
Yes.
And about the signboards. What was your office's response?
So, our response was that we would relay it to council with the statue. We have let folks know that that is not actually city property, that when the jail was constructed, that is actually Allegheny County property. But however, I think it's important that you all know that we are getting those calls. I think it's easy for folks to assume that it's automatically city sidewalk and city property because of where it is. With the gateway signage, we just made note of it and we said we'd pass it along. But we have gotten several calls about certain signs that are on our gateway.
Well, if you take that one down, you take all of them. My thought is, if you're going to do that, you might as well take the Mason sign off of it, because everybody think, well, there's a contingency of people who think all of us Masons are Satanists. If you look at it honestly, if you start pulling that thread, you might as well take both signboards down. It's a community service organization. And that's just my feeling on it, but it's the same thing with Cedar Hill. There are some Confederate-related things at Cedar Hill. And once again, you start pulling that thread. Do we go desecrate a cemetery? Signboards are easy, but you can't take one down without taking all of them, because you can find something to find offensive in every single organizational sign on that board.
Understood. It's not my place to express
Oh, I know.
opinion.
I knew this would come up eventually.
I do think that there's an opportunity, just from a gateway enhancement perspective, that we could look at better signage maybe, and better ways that we do our marketing for our events, that is more focused on our events versus everything that could or would be in the city, to potentially do better strategic marketing for our events and gatherings that we actually have, to expand that reach and have that, because there is visually, one could almost say that it offers a distraction, because when you come off the highway and then you see that and then you see the next sign, and there's just so much to see that you almost take your eyes off the road for more than the split second that you should. That would be my 2 cents if you're thinking of a safety perspective. It's almost a little just too busy.
Yes. I agree.
And that can become a visual distraction for drivers.
But if you're gonna do it, it's gotta be level across the board for every organization on there. I mean, because each organization, if I remember correctly, and I was in the Royaltons when we put that one up, and we paid for that. So every organization actually contributed money for their particular signs for those two boards.
What we could do where we give each of the organizations their signs back to then display on their property. Another thing I wanted to mention, since you mentioned the cemetery and it came up, I've been having discussions with some folks, as has the mayor, I believe, Dr. Lincoln Hoker. Dr. What is it? Dr.
McClintock.
McClintock, yes. On doing some commemorative slave markings out at Cedar Hill Cemetery. There are a lot of folks that say as long as you balance things out, I think, you know. So, I mean, those are discussions and decisions for you all, but since we mentioned Cedar Hill, my
And that's a
brain
good-
works
and
in weird ways, so I'll
Yeah,
put
Paul
that
was
out
bringing
there.
that up a while back, and I think that's really good.
I think that's something that
That's a
we should
really
support because it's
historically
important to
accurate.
tell both sides
Yeah,
of this history.
yeah.
So whenever I get that, I will make sure to pass it along and work to put it on council agenda. I think they're trying to do something very soon.
Okay. Tell y'all something I've discovered while I'm sitting here. I can hide behind these poles. Jerry can't see me.
Hey, Chris? Ooh.
I said, I could block him completely out right there. Oh, man. Oh, does anybody, council, any of y'all have any more, new business before we go on to this presentation? Everybody all right? So the only thing we have left on the agenda tonight is a presentation by Mr. Wright from the Joint School Services Committee on proposed merger of school divisions. So, Mr. Wright, are you ready to go?
Yes, sir.
Do you need a screen or anything?
I hate technology.
Oh.
Greetings, I'm Jacob Wright, the Boiling Springs District Representative and Chairman of the Allegheny County School Board. I'm a member and past chairman of our jointly operated Jackson River Technical Center and past board member of our jointly run Jackson River Governor's School. The last time I came before you all was in 2018 when we initially were forming the Joint Schools Committee and submitting our first piece of legislation that eventually led to the $400,000 appropriation that has helped get us where we are now. As of today, we have spent $194,358.10 of that money, with a few bills pending. I would like to commend Mayor Seibold and Mr. Tucker for their commitment to this process and their excellent attendance at the many meetings, including trips to Richmond. Their willingness to make sacrifice in their personal lives to serve as representatives of the City Council on this committee and garner as much information as possible is something to be admired. Mr. Tucker's wife, Jane, was my first teacher when I was in preschool, and his son, Jeffrey, was one of my first classmates at the same school. I've always associated the Tucker family with education in the Highlands. This evening, I've given each of you a copy of our memorandum that contains all joint school services related documentation up until this point. As you will see, our committee has been very dedicated, and this is the result of over 50 meetings. This committee has not taken this task lightly. To steal the words from Mr. Arrett, throughout the process, we have searched for a monster hiding in here somewhere, and we haven't been able to find it. Throughout the process, we have tried to keep our stated goal in mind, to maintain and continue to pursue excellence in education for our area young people while providing the fiscal responsibility the citizens of our county and deserve. I believe our committee has shown there are possibilities to that end. At various times throughout this process, members of the committee have traveled to Richmond to meet leaders at the state level, to include Delegate Austin and Senator Deeds, Superintendent of Public Instruction Dr. James Lane, and Education Secretary Atif Carney. All have expressed interest in our efforts and have offered their support should our proposal be accepted and approved at the local level. The foundation of our work is contained in the feasibility study authored by James Regenball and Dr. Richard Salmon. Those gentlemen combined for nearly 80 years of experience in state, local, and school finance. Work was a major catalyst to our committee. Following that report's release last December, our committee broke into 5 subcommittees: governance, curriculum, facilities, finance, and transportation. Those subcommittees were comprised of committee members, local experts, and educational professionals from both city and county governments and school divisions, as well as Dr. Ranoni of DSLCC. At this point, it is important to distinguish work the committee is required by state code to do work and that would help local leaders make an informed decision. Virginia Code's 22.1-25 states that specific requirements required through this process, but it is up to the localities to fill in the finer details that actually make the proposal whole. The document before you covers not only the state requirements, but also what the committee believes is an equitable plan for both city and county to provide better educational opportunities for our youth while making more efficient use of both state and local funds. Let it be known that we did not set out to create the leanest school system. We set out to create the most sensible plan that would best utilize local resources and give our students the most opportunities to succeed. The following are some of the highlights of the findings of our subcommittees. The Finance Subcommittee recommends a per-pupil funding formula basis for both yearly budget process as well as shared capital expenses. Existing debt service transferred to localities for retirement. An early retirement incentive package should be offered to right-sized division staff over time. And we are also interested in a 3 to 5 year budget agreement with using averages, much like the JRTC board does, so there wouldn't be a big spike year to year. Our governance subcommittee recommends a 4-3 board makeup with initial appointments giving way to elected seats via referendum. 2/3 majority of the entire body is recommended for superintendent hiring and termination and building closure and construction. Our timeline calls for July 1st, 2022, beginning of the new division, a 2023-2024 joining of student bodies. Facilities Subcommittee recommends a high school, middle school configuration with K through 5 elementary, 6 through 8 middle, and 9 through 12 high school. Current AHS would serve as the high school, and current CHS would serve as the middle school. This was not an easy decision, and Mr. Tucker and I were both on this committee, as well as Ms. Onitis, Mr. Alan Dressler, Ms. Sneed Johnson, and several others. The findings of this subcommittee were based on AHS's capacity and location in reference to JRTC and DSLCC. You will also notice in reading through the proposal that Clifton Middle School is not part of the plan. Covington High School would be the middle school of the school system, and football and baseball would be played at Casey Field, and hopefully softball teams could use the Jackson River Sports Complex with the city's blessings. I will speak more on CMS in the curriculum section. There's also been talk about the lack of high school kids at CHS would hurt Covington's tax basis. This is simply not true. Middle school parents are traditionally a lot more involved in school-related activities than high school parents. This plan also adds about 200 students to the current capacity of CHS, and these are kids from all over the entire county. Who wouldn't want to buy their groceries at the Covington Food Line or pick up dinner at Wendy's while their child finished up practice or simply on their way home from dropping off their child? The Transportation Subcommittee recommends the current Allegheny County Public Schools logistics program, TransFinder, to help tackle bus routing. The Curriculum Subcommittee explored many different concepts: traditional, project-based, magnet school, and a greater integration with DSLCC. Career and technical education, as well as arts and humanities, have possibilities for expansion. Mr. Tucker and I were both on this subcommittee, and I feel that it is the most exciting subcommittee because this is where the true benefits of a consolidated system are seen. more opportunities because there is a bigger pool of students. Over the course of this project, I've heard the phrase, if it's not broke, don't fix it. Covington schools are not broken. Allegheny County schools are not broken. They're just small. The size of a school system absolutely determines how many classes you can offer. I've also heard people say things like that even in a consolidated system, the local governments are not going to be willing to spend the money to increase opportunity. Currently, the Covington City Council and the Board of Supervisors can't afford to spend more money above and beyond what they currently spend. So how do you fix that? You consolidate, and organically there's more opportunity. There are more English 11 classes offered because instead of having 65 kids taking English 11, you now have 215 kids that need to take it. So it has to be offered more often, offering flexibility within one's schedule. Opportunities for students to try their hands at more electives, more college courses, more career and technical opportunities. Flexibility in a master schedule, so many more options. Last year was one of the first times I really saw this hit hard on Allegheny. Two of the most popular classes at JRTC had very low numbers of students because of a scheduling problem with sophomore English. If a student wants to be a welder or a carpenter and has no aspirations of going to college, we need to be able to help them get this training. More class opportunities offer this. Electives are what kept me wanting to come to school every day, and whether the elective you love is art, physics, or agriculture, a consolidated school system allows you more opportunities to do what interests you. Dr. Renoni and his board are very excited about creating new partnerships with the joint school system and the idea of acquiring classroom space at CMS for potential expansion of the nursing program and potentially expanding the electrical and instrumentation offerings, as well as other partnerships with our school system, not only in career and technical opportunities, but in the arts and humanities as well. Can you imagine a nursing program that's producing LPNs out of high school? That would be fantastic. When we all work together, we have more opportunities. Sure, not as many kids might make the varsity basketball team, but did you know we have a swimming team that consistently competes in states every year that takes place during the same season? The next Michael Phelps might be walking the halls of CHS every day and doesn't even know it. I believe it was last year that CHS didn't have a JV football team. What about all of those kids? I know quite a few that didn't play at all because they didn't feel they were ready for varsity. Small school systems are great, and a combined school system between the two would still be smaller than many of our neighboring systems. In closing, I would be remiss if I didn't mention one of your own and commend them for their service and commitment to this project. Mr. Arrett had only been in his seat a few weeks when we whisked him away to Richmond to meet with lawmakers and the heads of the State Board of Education and the Secretary of Education. A quick learner, he has been steadfast in his work, and while oftentimes he has played the devil's advocate in conversations between the two of us, he's always had the best interest of your school system and city in mind. He is to be commended for his hard work in searching for that monster that could affect the school system that he attended and his children now attend. He has gracefully accepted questions and sometimes ridicule from people, but has remained professional and stuck to his fact-based arguments throughout the process. You have a great board member in Mr. Arrett, and he has been focused on the task at hand. We wouldn't be to this point without the willingness to do the necessary homework on behalf of the city school board and our committee. I'm happy to answer any questions you all might have.
Council, do you have any questions?
I have a few things.
I have one.
You first.
You said I was on facilities, but it doesn't say that here in the book.
Oh, we gotta get new books printed.
Hey,
I'm left out.
That's
hey, they're
okay.
hot off the press.
That's okay. I was on the city school board instead of
Mr.
city
Tucker was
council.
on
I
the
just
school
figured
board
I'd lighten the
earlier.
mood.
Yeah, you had Tucker on
I'm
the
only
school
listed
board.
on finance.
We'll have a third addendum to this.
Thanks. No, I'm just kidding.
What did you have, Alan?
All right, I just have a couple of things. First, I was not on the subcommittee on finance, but the other night on the Q&A on Thursday, I did read the lawyer's point of view. And in the final paragraph, it said, at the conclusion of the special session, the governor will work on a new budget that will include year 2 spending The second-year budget, or caboose bill, will be introduced in December of 2020 and acted on by the 2021 Virginia General Assembly in January. We believe that as long as the Joint Subcommittee is committed to developing and submitting a consolidation plan to the Board of Education, the Governor and 2021 General Assembly will support these efforts and again allocate appropriate funding for the items outlined in the consolidation plan. Now, that was $1.5 million. Now, the question that I have is that they say, we believe.
Yes, sir.
What if that does not come to fruition? Should we or should we not have a plan B?
Mr. Tucker,
Yes, sir.
I would say you should have a plan B. I will also say that the General Assembly this year, anything that was added as an addendum to the current biennium's budget, anything that was new spending was pulled. So
Yes.
whether it was Department of Transportation, Emergency Management, Education, anything, all of the new spending that was not currently already programmed in the budget went away. So I think that this just got purely caught in the mix and in the crosshairs of that due to the revenue shortfalls.
I realize that, but I'm only interested
In the Plan B.
the Plan B and what we have here. Are we going to get that money? And if so, for how long? Because I need to know when City Council and the Board of Supervisors are going to have to start going without state funds and sustaining what we receive from the state.
Well, as part of the resolution, do you all have that in there? Is that in their packet?
I was looking through the book, I don't see it.
Okay, the proposed resolution, actually says that this is all dependent on adequate state funding. So,
So if there's no adequate state funding,
It actually
can we do it,
says,
or does that just simply go away?
it actually says approval and support of the General Assembly. So approval is one thing, then the support in my mind is the funding.
Yes, correct.
And if they're not, then we're not bound by anything we do if they do not approve or fund.
Correct, that's how I read it as well. I'm
Because
hoping-
obviously we won't be able to do it in order to equal. First part of it was reorganizing the administrative staff, schools, correct, Jacob?
yes, sir.
And you said there would be because of attrition and this type of thing, that we would save $900,000. Now, my question is this, okay? Retirement incentive and that type of thing, but that doesn't mean that they're going to take it. And if they don't take it, because nowadays, people are working longer. And the reason they are working longer is basically because of the times that we live in now and the fact that medical insurance is expensive. And so we're getting medical, or some people that are going to stay simply because of that before they can go on Medicare and then buy a much less cost premium for another policy that would go along with that.
Correct.
So-
And the early retirement incentive program actually covers their health insurance until they're old enough to be eligible for Medicare, Medicaid.
I understand that, but I also understand that they will probably want to continue to work. And so that's going to be a thing. So what I'm saying is that these savings by attrition may take longer than we think.
They very well could. I'll tell you,
In this plan.
in our school system, this year, for example, was the least amount of new teachers we've had in a long time, and there were 12. So you figure we probably lost 15 and replaced 12. I mean, that's kind of what's been going on in Allegheny for
Several years, I know.
Ever since I've been on the board, because I got on the board the year after the Boiling and Falling closed, and, you know, we lost a lot of students to the city in that timeframe. So, we've been losing every year.
Okay, and according to what we said in here about facilities and not using CMS, and you are, we've been talking to Mr. Renone about perhaps expanding some of the college and some of the things that they offer, for instance, and new things they could offer, nursing programs, et cetera. But what if, because this is a new school board that we're going to be putting into effect, okay? And I know it'll take a 2/3 majority, but if the new school board decides that they want to close
Don't think that'll happen is I think that the idea of Clifton Middle School, I think that's something that our board would want to start those programs with DSL-CEC and not maybe wait for the 23-24 school year. So I think that could all happen before then.
Well, I hope that there's something,
And
because it's going to be a while before we actually do the consolidation. It's going to start in another way, and it's going to be put in
Yeah, absolutely.
pieces at a time. Okay, now the last one, I asked this question, back in September, October, whenever Troutman sent some lawyers down, and they brought us this first little bit here. Many years ago, I don't know how many years ago, the city of Salem Public Schools became a part of Roanoke County, okay? And after 3, maybe 4 years, they decided it wasn't working, and they were able to pull out of that merger. Now, what if City of Covington, Covington City Schools, decides that if we're trying this for a few years and say after 2-3 years, we decide we don't think it's working and we want to pull out? Can we do that, or are we stuck?
I think you're always allowed to do that as a locality.
Well, now, what they did, the way they answered me at that meeting was a lot of and ah, and maybe that particular thing, and they said, we'll get back to you. They never did.
Councilman Tucker?
Yes.
So all the localities will retain ownership of their facilities, right? So since the schools will stay on our rosters as property, as real estate that we have, in the county's instance, because the school board actually owns the schools, Allegheny County school property, they're actually going to transfer it over to the locality. So if you retain all of the assets, there's no reasoning behind that if both governing authorities, you know, for the governing bodies decided to mutually that they wanted to pull out, that you would not be able to then come to separate funding deals and essentially revert.
Well, what I'm thinking is that going to be possible, or will it be under the condition of receiving state funds that we do not pull out down the road?
I would say what it would come down to would be that while receiving state funds, we would have to stay together. If we chose not to receive state funds, then
Well, how long are those state funds going to be? Are we asking for it?
I think it would be best 5 years.
Thank you. Okay. I was hoping you'd say that.
Yeah.
And being a part of the curriculum committee, I will say it was a very, very interesting thing. We looked at several different scenarios, which were all intelligent. One of those scenarios, which I thought was very, very good because I'm a fine arts teacher, music, was the fact that we had like 2 magnet schools. One would be a fine arts school, and the other high school would be technical. And, you know, I thought this was a fantastic idea because, you know, I'm all for anything fine arts in there because the electives are getting shot over. I receive USA Today every day, except for the weekends. And there are several places in this country right now, probably over 100 to 200, and this is just the beginning, that are looking at cutting fine arts from the schools. And when I left Covington High School in 2006, I left a little over 90 band members and 65 choral members. And with those people through the years, we were able to give them opportunities. Every few years, the choir went to New York City, where we performed. We've performed at St. John the Divine, St. Patrick's Cathedral, in front of the Lincoln Center for the Performing Arts, at the United Nations, and also at the Statue of Liberty. And the look on those kids' faces were priceless. And the opportunity to visit New York, to see Broadway shows, to tour this, to see the history that was there in New York, put into office, was in City Hall in New York City, the present City Hall. And so there were some very interesting things, and the band going to Florida, going to Toronto, and performing all over the place down there at all of the theme parks in Florida, and also at the competitions up in Toronto. And, fine arts is one of those things that I don't believe can be cut. But in today's technology and things, we aren't getting the students that are there, and so those opportunities are important. I have students every day that say something to me about, remember this, remember that. Wasn't that so great? There's one of them. There's two, 3, 4, as you can see. And to me, that's important because that was for the kids.
Absolutely.
And that's what this merger is supposed to be about, for the kids, not necessarily for the numbers in the budget. So if we can give the students a better education, that's fine. But if it's not going to get any better than it is right now, there's no reason to do it. Because if it's not just for the money, you don't do it just for the money, because our kids are our future.
Absolutely. I agree 100%. And speaking on behalf of the Allegheny County School Board, I know that we can't do any more than we can do right now. And so something has to give if we're going to expand opportunities. But our kids have been going to Florida. They've been performing at Disney World and those places like that. That there's definitely not as many kids interested in band these days as there once was. If you have an excellent teacher that develops a culture for band and choir, that's how you get those kids to really get back into it. And if you've got to go out and recruit those kids.
You also have to look at scheduling as well. And I'm not going to criticize, but I'm going to be honest with you. Block scheduling is not very advantageous for electives.
Right.
Unless you can take the 4th block, cut it in 2, and make it 2 year-long classes. Then that way band students can take it all year if they want, choir students can take it all year if they want, art students can take it all year if they want. Foreign language. Covington used to offer Spanish and French. We had to cut out French, but we still offer Spanish. And these things, I think that's very, very important that we be able to do that. But as I said, block scheduling doesn't really lend itself that much to it. Now also, here's an example for you. We auditioned for all district or all regional band and all regional chorus in November and December. Okay, so the kids audition, and then if they can't get it in the second semester, that's when the actual concert and attendance to those all districts, it takes place. Second weekend in February is always choir. I can tell you that because there's always a threat of snow.
Right.
But at any rate, and then what if you have kids that are coming in the second semester and they want to try out for all district? And of course, after you get to all district, you try out for state. And so that really hurts those students, unless we can make an exception and have the ones that make it still be able to come to the actual event and try out for state in the second semester. And vice versa, those that are going to be in the class are allowed to go and try out in the first semester. So you can see some of the problems that we're looking at, and I look at it from that particular point of view. I'm sorry to take up most of your time.
No, I'm a fine arts major, so you're preaching to the choir. But the idea of You know, if we have one high school, and perhaps it could be that we go back to 7-period days. When I was in high school, we had 7-period days. I was the last class before block scheduling. One of the reasons that Covington High School went to block scheduling is because it works out really well for JRTC.
Right.
And one of the things Mr. Spangler said in the meeting the other night is that the kids in the 4th block lose over 50 hours of teaching. The Covington High School kids lose over 50 hours of teaching in 4th block every year
That's
because
for-
of transportation.
For technical, JRTC, yeah.
So let me jump in here for just a second. Crystal had mentioned a little bit ago Plan B.
Yeah.
And I'm curious to know how either school system plans on improving the educational opportunities of the students, other than with this process we're going through right now. We've seen, and Mr. Tucker's talked about it, and we've seen classes drop and drop and drop and drop, where we don't have a lot of the things we used to have. I'm in complete agreement with Mr. Tucker, and I think, I want to know what Plan B is. I guess that's my, are there cost savings if you stay the way you are? Is there better educational opportunities if you stay the way you are? I'd like to know those answers. Does either school system have a 5-year plan to tell us where they will be at if this doesn't happen?
I don't really believe so. And, as our budgets get cut every year, and, we're not just getting cut locally. We've actually, in Allegheny County, we've had level funding for quite some time now. But because we've been losing students, then we lose state funding.
ADM.
And so that is and people say, well, the state's going to cause you to consolidate schools. Well, the state's not going to come in and make us do it. They're going to do it financially. We're going to keep losing students, and we're going to get to a point where we're going to say, we can't afford to offer the kids what they really deserve. And that's one of the things that really gets me motivated to be a part of this, because, if we can come together right now in a joint school system, there would be less kids than I graduated with in 1996 combined. And I remember what Allegheny was like at that time, and we had 2 art teachers. We don't now. Band had, like you said, close to 100 people or something, and those things were vibrant. And now we've gone to block scheduling. Band is an after-school activity. Things have definitely changed. And as both localities lose population, it's only going to get tougher from here.
Is it still accredited, even though it's after school, they still get a credit for it? Or do you know?
That's a good question.
So Jacob, tonight, the intent was for you to bring the plan that
Yes.
the Joint Service
Can I ask some
Committee has put
questions
together.
too?
Yeah, go ahead.
Okay. First of all, explain to me facilities. You said Allegheny the high school, Covington High School the middle school, Clifton Middle be
Not used.
not used. What about Mountain View, Sharon, Edgemont, Judah Watson, all that?
So kids in the K through 5 should not be affected at all in this. You don't really start taking electives and things like that until 6th grade or so. So those are the kids that will be affected. By coming together, we could offer, it's an average of about 215 students per class. So the idea is when middle school starts, they can start electives and start doing things that they choose and get on a career path. And that's one of the things that we've talked about in the curriculum subcommittee is.
But no, I'm talking about actual buildings. What buildings will be used? You say Clifton Middle is going to be taken out of the equation. Will the other buildings remain in use?
Absolutely.
So Clifton Middle, and that was for the idea you talked about with Renoni. And without looking at your screen, I want to hear this in your words. Explain that to me. Because I kind of liked what I heard rumors of.
explain the idea of Clifton Middle School?
Yeah, what Renoni had, if you can,
So the things we talked about was developing programs. One thing is that Clifton Middle School is smack dab in between Dabney and Allegheny, which is nice for that. The idea was that they would be able to expand some of their offerings. Currently, Dabney does not have a licensed practical nurse program on this side of the mountain. They are interested in having something over here. They do not have a culinary program over here. They have it over there. So it could be nice to move that over here. One of the thoughts was if Dabney owns the building, they can get state funding through the community college system to develop some of these new programs. And those are programs that our students could take. So it's kind of like it could be a partnership much like JRTC is, but to give the kids a little bit more of a backbone when they get out of there. You know, they could have something like an LPN. You know, right now we're graduating CNAs, which is great that we can graduate people with some sort of certification, but if we could just start doing LPNs, we have a lot of kids that are interested in our electrical and instrumentation class. You know, we have a lot of students from Allegheny that go to New River Valley to take that class. I know Dabney would like to expand their offerings in that. Those are some of the things that they could expand on, and you know, Dr. Renoni had ideas of expanding the arts and humanities. You know, the idea of a kid graduating with some sort of college classes is excellent. The profile of a Virginia graduate is a new thing that the state is working on. And there are all these different things that they want to see from kids that teaches them different types of training, and so kids don't graduate and they don't know what they're going to do.
okay, next question. A few years ago, y'all instituted the New Tech for All at Allegheny High School. And I heard that kind of went over like a fart in church with some people. Some kids did not like have it being forced down their throats, while some kids did good.
Right.
Have y'all talked about that for this? Will it be
Yes.
forced down their throat, or will there be kind of like a Magna Vista school within a school?
I think that it would be a school within a school if Allegheny continues with the New Tech Network. Our New Tech Network contract is up at the end of this classroom year. The New Tech Network doesn't do much good when we're virtual learning. You know, it's more of a
It's more hands-on. And basically,
hands-on, so.
what the change is that the students, not all of them will be forced to take new tech.
And that's what I'm getting at.
It will be done correctly.
Well, and that's what I'm getting at, you know, because Alan and I went to Indiana, we saw the kids who wanted to do New Tech could, kids who wanted traditional could. Has there been talk about doing the school within a school? Has there been, what's that called, STEM or whatever it is with the science, technology, math? Has that been talked about as
Well,
well?
that's some of the stuff that Mr. Tucker was talking about.
Okay.
Yes.
But the New Tech, you know, the idea of project-based learning is great, and I'm sure there are plenty of teachers at Covington that teach it as well. You know, it's a style of teaching that a lot of people like, and some teachers teach that way, and some don't. I like the idea of project-based learning. It keeps me involved. I'm not the kind that can just sit in a lecture class and take it all in, but no, that was, to answer your question, no. It is not going to be a New Tech school.
Okay, I mean, because I've had parents ask.
Yes, I understand.
I've had parents ask
I
that have
understand.
heard horror stories, sorry, but from parents who've got kids at the county that don't like being forced to do New Tech. And it is what it is. And I don't like the idea of having just the one, because if we're going to do this to increase opportunities, you narrow on opportunities if you're going to do it for everybody in a consolidated high school.
And a lot of those kids that feel forced to do it might like it if they could choose to do it. But when they feel forced to do it, they
Well,
get back.
basically, throughout the years, there have been some teachers that have always taught with project-based learning, okay? It's something that you do, you know, you separate into small groups. Just as an example, say if you've got a classroom of 20 students. You divide them into 5 or 4 separate groups of 5, okay, and say, all right, we're doing English and history together, which is a good combination for the two. and you say, all right, let's write a research the United States Constitution, the state constitution, constitutions and works from other countries and things of that nature. They're getting the history in there. Then they're going to take their ideas and see how they can apply that to their school system or maybe to their community, things of that nature. And then as it's written up, you have your English portion of it. And each one of those kids in the group has a certain responsibility. And they talk to one another and they help each other.
Right.
And you have the 5 C's basically taking ground there. And that's, I mean, that has been done. You can do that in traditional classroom and still have project-based learning.
Right.
But the thing of it is that some students learn better with project-based learning and other students learn better with traditional classroom. And it's up to the students, the parents, and the teachers as to which one they have, because all three have to buy into it as to whether they want to do project-based learning or not. And when we went to Indiana, which John said Ohio the other night, he was wrong. It was Indiana. And there were 2 schools there. Now, both of those systems had a separate building for their new tech, but it was almost like right across the street from high school.
Nettleton
And
property.
the thing that was wonderful there, of course, they're in a bigger area, okay, with more industry and things of that nature. And these kids could actually get internships with some of these industries. And if they were interested enough in it, the industry would pay for their education to go into that, and also they'd have a job coming out. And also those students, now for the college prep students, there were students there, I think we had 4 or 5 of them, said, okay, this one was accepted at Oxford, this one was accepted at Harvard, this one was accepted at Yale and Princeton, and so on and so forth. And then, but for the opposite end, the biggest impression that I got was special ed. There was a student there, do you remember? Mm-hmm. The student, and he came in and he was talking, we got to talk to these kids. And this student was in special ed, and he said, listen, I was struggling in special ed. You know, he's the type of kid that went in the back, and he'd sit back there, he had no friends to talk to, anything mainstreamed, and he was struggling to get D's. And he went into this situation where he had these groups of students, and he was a part of it. And they talked to him, and they listened to him. He had a responsibility, and it made him feel like he was more a part of what was going on and a part of his own education. And as a result, he said, I'm still struggling, but instead of D's, I'm getting C's and B's. And that, to me, for that kid, and he was special ed, that meant more to me than anything else.
Absolutely. That's the way one of my tour guides was when we went to Magna Vista. He said that he hated school before, and he was failing, and then he got in this, and he was making C's and B's, and he said, that might not mean much to you, but it means the world to me.
And see, for students like that, that's where project-based learning helps a great deal. And they don't fall through the cracks. And, you know, and I'm not saying that we have kids falling through the cracks in Covington, because we don't. I know those teachers, and I know how concerned they are with the students, and how good they work with those students, whether they're special ed or whether they're college preparatory. And we've also had, just to add a little note, 1 or 2 or maybe 3 sometimes years in the past, not too recent past, who have received their associate's degree from Dabney before they walked across the hall and graduated from high school. So we do have that.
And that's a wonderful program. We've had several students this year that have done that. But like I said, there are people that think that people are saying if it's not broke, don't fix it. I'm not saying it's broke. None of them are broke. You can go to Covington High School, or you can go to Allegheny High School, and you can get a great education.
I got 2 very quick ones, real quick.
All right.
And I promise this will be it. If you were to do the school within a school at Allegheny, can Allegheny be configured? I'm not familiar enough with that building. Can it be configured to where it would actually be space in that building for a school within a school?
It could be. We've done some capital improvements in the past several years to create some new classrooms. that are set up for new tech, some spaces. We've bought a lot of different furniture. If you tour Allegheny High School, you might be really surprised by the furniture in the classrooms. They have all different types of chairs and
So-
comfortable things, and
You create a common area
yes,
in
yes,
the classroom rather than out in the halls, which is what they had in Indiana.
yeah.
Okay,
But
very
we-
last question.
Yes, sir.
Dispel a rumor, because I know it'll come up. If it doesn't come up here, it'll come up somewhere else. Environmental study at Allegheny. Allegheny's been flooded 3 or 4 times in 50 years. Was there an environmental study done for mold, that type of thing, residual effects from that flooding in that building?
It is not part of this study. I don't have anything. I don't have a solid answer for you on that. You know, this one, we just asked for basically the fixtures, the furnaces, that kind of stuff.
Major mechanical.
Yeah, this is mechanical stuff.
I think he's also talking about the foundation around where the stuff got in and got underground and it still worked its way into the basic cinder block and come through. And is there any residual effects from that?
I don't know of a study that has been done. That's not to say one couldn't be done.
I know that's important to a lot of parents who,
Yeah.
I've heard from the city end, if they send their kids to Allegheny, who's to say that they're not going to get black mold from all those floods? And I know you've heard the same comments. Rumor had it was that there was not a study done, and I just wanted to hear for myself, was there an actual environmental study done on Allegheny?
I have never known one, but I got on the board right after they did all of the new geothermal. They did all that work to put the new ceilings, new lighting, and the geothermal stuff in. And I would only assume that something was done around that time. I think that was like a $9 million project or something.
I think it was 8 or 9 is what I heard.
Well, Jacob, I appreciate you coming.
Mr. Mayor,
Oh, go ahead, Eddie.
you know, there's always been rumors since I was in school that if Allegheny flooded one more time, they were condemning the school.
Right.
Is that still a possibility, and what is the
No, I
dating
actually
that?
asked several people that in our school board office, and Fred Vaughn, who has been there forever, he's never heard it. Kevin Rice, who was the facilities director, has never heard it. Gerald Franson actually answered one of the questions the other night. The floodplains, how things are labeled by FEMA. Allegheny is in floodplain X, which basically it doesn't mean it couldn't flood at some point, but it's not in a floodway, it's not in a flood zone. You know, I would say this building is probably in floodway X. Gerald made the reference that something on top of Peters Mountain is in floodway X.
We're
which
floodway X.
You're floodway X here. But, and then they talked at our school board meeting last night that, that one of the worst problems was a
Yeah, I can tell you where it did came right over from where the country club was.
Right.
That
They
way.
said there was a river coming through there, but
Yeah.
you know, I heard that there were people talking about how Allegheny's flooded. It's never gotten that high.
First,
That
oh,
bottom,
yeah.
I don't know how familiar you are with it, but the cafeteria wing, that's the part that really flooded, and,
It was about 3 or 4 feet deep in the auditorium.
yeah, it washed a piano off the stage, from what I hear.
I remember that.
So
But
Jacob,
no, I've never heard, to answer your question, I've never heard that or had that confirmed.
you all right, Raymond? Question now,
Yes, sir.
both school boards meet next week and have actual public hearings for people to come speak for or against the proposal.
Yes, and I believe Covington's is at Kerfman Hall, and ours is going to be at the Gleason Hall at the Mountain View CMS facility.
Yeah. And this was never intended to be a public comment meeting tonight. It was more of a informational for the council to become familiar with the work that's been done.
Yes.
So next week, 2 public hearings, one at the county, one at the city, then both school boards will vote next week
Yes, the
after the
9th and the
public
10th.
hearings.
The 9th and the 10th, and then I guess you all are in the Board of Supervisors are the 15th.
Well, we're going to meet on the 15th. And the process would be public hearing, school boards vote, bring recommendation to council and Board of Supervisors to vote.
Yes, sir. And if any of you all have any questions about any of this or something you want to ask the attorneys about or something, contact myself or Mr. Tucker or Mayor Seibold, and we can get any answers you want.
Do any of the citizens, will it be on the ballot or anything?
No, sir, it will not be a referendum. The actual, that 22.1-25, even if it did go to a referendum, we would still have to do it the same way. So a vote really wouldn't even matter, because it would have to still be done the way we're doing it right now, the way the law calls for it.
One thing I'd like to emphasize to you all, and I don't know if Mr. Mayor Seibold, Councilman Tucker, and Mr. Wright clarified, everything that is in this proposal is a recommendation, right? So whatever facilities used or the curriculum even at this point, everything is a recommendation. So, you know, in the 2 years, once you get to the elected school board, let's just say, should this pass, if you get to an elected school board, it then becomes the responsibility of the governing body and who the people themselves have elected at large to then make those decisions regarding the fine details. I will also say that after all of this is done, should it pass, there are plans that all the committees would still continue to meet to flesh out additional details, to work in earnest, my understanding is, and Mr. Wright can correct me if I'm wrong, or Mr. Seibold, Mr. Tucker, because we just love
Mr.
the
Tucker's
6
tired.
hours I spend a week on
I'm
school stuff.
sitting here going, oh God, more Zoom.
It's been over 50 meetings, we tabulated it's been over 50 meetings,
Yeah.
but we'll continue to meet so that the next school board, when they're elected, are set up for success with at least as much information on their hands as possible to then proceed with informed decisions with how then they would govern a joint school system. So the first step would be combining the administrations, which means, you know, your school board offices, they come together. And then 2 years after that, you would start working on filtering in and combining the actual student bodies of both school systems. So it's a phased approach. It's not something that's overnight.
But one correction to that, it would start as an appointed school board.
Yes, and then move to
And
elected.
then it would move to elected if there was a referendum that passed to have an elected. And that's the way Williamsburg, James City County is. One of them's elected, one of them's appointed. But it has to become an elected school board, you have to have 1,000 signatures or something within the locality.
And also, remember, tell them it's going to be staggered so that you don't have all 7.
So, so everybody doesn't leave.
And one other thing to be pointed out in this report, in some of these subcommittees and recommendations, there were a few of them that were not unanimous
Right.
in what was put in there. So I think that the public needs to know that.
Absolutely.
It was a lot of discussion over everything, wasn't it, Al?
Yes, there was.
It just
There
didn't
was.
walk in the room and say, it's the way it's going to be.
There was. There was a lot of discussion, a lot of meetings, and
50 meetings.
there was quite a bit. And I commend all of you for being a part of it, and to also your staff that was all a part of it. That was quite the commitment.
Fortunately, the longest one was about 1 hour and 15 minutes. So,
Council, I'm all in favor of adjournment.
Motion to
moved.
adjourn.